Hey guys, it's Annie here. I have just thrown together this quick little tutorial for you on how to use MAXQDA with your mixed methods study. We'll go over three main things. We will talk about importing your data into MAXQDA, we will talk about coding your qualitative data, and then finally we will talk about the integration of your quantitative and qualitative data for your mixed methods study. Enjoy! So for those who are not yet familiar with what MaxQDA even is, I'll give you that quick little background here. MaxQDA is a computer software program that really specializes in qualitative data analysis. So we use it most frequently for qualitative studies. It's also computer software that can be really helpful in literature reviews, in a number of things. But in this tutorial, we're going to really focus on how we can use MaxQDA for our mixed methods research. You can see right at the top, I have highlighted and circled and a big arrow there a mixed methods tab that's built right into MaxQDA. So there are different ways within MaxQDA that we can use mixed methods. We can do different types of visual charting and different types of data integration with our mixed methods. But you can see that it's a function built right into this computer software. So it's a pretty powerful tool to have in our back pocket when we are doing mixed methods research. So coding our qualitative data isn't something that we're going to focus heavily on during this tutorial. We will touch base on it. It is part of one of the three steps that we're going to cover. But I just wanted to give you this quick little snapshot of a qualitative project that I worked on earlier this year to give you a sense of what coding qualitative data really looks like in MaxQDA. The examples that we're going to go through during this tutorial are much, much smaller just to make it simple and easy to show you how to do. But this picture just gives you a really good idea of the intense kind of coding that is involved with coding qualitative data in MaxQDA. You can see on this transcript that I have on the screen here, all the different colors represent different coding for this study that I did. Off into the margins, you can see all the different code symbols there, as well as some notes and memos that are attached to those codes. So you can get really in depth with the coding process in MaxQDA, and it can just be incredibly helpful. So I just wanted you to get a sense of what it really looks like when you code qualitative data in MaxQDA. What I'll show you in a few slides from here is a much simpler version of this, but this just gives you a peek at what it can really look like. I wanted to provide a little bit of background on the exact research question that I am asking in this tutorial. That will help make a lot more sense of how we are using MaxQDA to integrate our data and really address this specific question. So the question is on your screen here, but essentially what I am looking to answer is, do post-ICU patients who have a low quality of life tell us something different about what needs to improve for them to have a better quality of life than those with a normal quality of life? And this is during ICU clinic follow-up. So I'll make this make a little bit more sense for you. So this research study is a secondary analysis of data that we gathered from patients who had been critically ill and who attended our post-ICU recovery clinic. The data that we'll show you in this study is representative of the data. It is not actual patient data, just for obvious reasons, but it's very closely representative of the kind of data that we'll get from our patients. So as a background for our ICU recovery clinic, we see patients who have been in our ICUs, adult patients who have been in our ICUs for at least 3 days. We try to see these patients within 4 weeks of hospital discharge is our goal. And as part of their ICU recovery assessment, we always assess their quality of life. And we do that by using the EQ5D visual analog scale. And that is a scale that goes from 0 to 100. So we ask every patient on a scale from 0 to 100, where would you rate your current health state today? 0 is their health is terrible and it couldn't get any worse. And 100 is that their health is perfect and they can't imagine it getting any better. Right after they provide us with a number on that scale, we ask an immediate follow-up question, which is, okay, so to bump yourself up that scale, even just by a little bit, what would you really like to see improve? And that is the qualitative answer that we collect from our patients. They can tell us any number of things. And that is the specific data that we're looking at in this study. Does that answer that patients provide us, is that different in patients who have a low quality of life versus patients who have a high quality of life and or a normal quality of life, I should say. And low and normal is age-based, and it's defined on population norms, and the population norms have been defined and published by the developers of the quality of life scale. So that is how we decide if they are normal or low quality of life, and then we just really want to answer this question of what is it exactly that these patients need, and does it differ between the two groups? Okay, so for the first part of this tutorial, we are simply going to import our data into MAXQDA. So you can see on the screen here, this is our MAXQDA home base. What we do, simply, we go up to the import tab at the top here, click on that, and we are importing directly from an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm just double clicking on that. Go ahead and find your Excel spreadsheet just like you would for anything else. Once you double click on it, you will see this screen pop up here. Now, this talks about the variables that are within your data set. It's always a great idea to start with a clean data set. So clean that data set up as much as you can before you want to import into MAXQDA. But what you can go through here is you can go through and see how things are going to be pulled into MAXQDA. You can see right off the bat here that one of these variables is being pulled in as a code. So what that's saying is that we're going to pull this information in for you so you can code this qualitative data. It's not what I want to do with this variable. So I'm just going to uncheck that and I'm going to pull it in as a normal variable. That could be interesting for a different study, but just not the current study that we're working on. The study that we are working on, this bottom variable here, is the qualitative information that we got from our patients when we asked them, what would it take for you to improve your quality of life? And this is the information they gave us. This is what we want to look at and to specifically code. So I'm going to make sure that that's being pulled in as information that I am able to code. I'm also going to pull it in as a variable, so I'm going to check it right there. Go ahead, look through this, hit OK when you are ready. This next box that pops up again shows you your variables, and you can go through this. One thing I like to double check here is just if this is all information that I really want to pull in. So again, starting with a clean data set helps, you know what you're getting in. But let's say I was like, I don't really care what ICU they were admitted to when they came in. That has no relevance for my study. It's just going to be extra noise in my data set. I'm not even going to import it. So you can just uncheck it, go through that, make sure the things that you want there are there and checked, and then go ahead and hit import. Takes a couple seconds, loads up. You'll get a small little summary screen pop up here. It just tells you all what was pulled in. Just go ahead and close that out. What you see over here in the Documents tab is all the data that was pulled in. So now these are each individual research participants. They all had their own unique ID number that got pulled in, and they came with some data already pulled in. So if you go ahead and double click, they're each considered a document, is just what MAXQDA calls them, but they're each of our participants. These are the qualitative answers that these patients gave us when we asked the question. Now you'll see some of these patients didn't provide us with an answer for some reason or another. Maybe the question wasn't asked, or maybe they just couldn't answer. Some patients just didn't have an answer. If there's no qualitative data, I'm not going to do anything with that. So I'm just going to X these patients out and go through there. So when I kind of scroll down, I see there's a handful of zeros in here. So I'm just going to go through and clean that up and get rid of all these. So everybody that's in my documents group here has qualitative data for me to code. So you can just go through that. You can see down here, 20 people had responses. So that's how many we will end up with in our documents group when we are done too. So after that is all cleaned up, we are ready to move on to our next step of opening up this qualitative data and getting it coded. Okay, so for the first part of this, so for the next step of our tutorial, we are going to cover coding our qualitative data that we have uploaded into MAXQDA. So if you remember, we pulled our data set into MAXQDA. I cleaned this up, so now all of our data points over here each have qualitative information in it for me to code. So let's just do a really quick recap and remember what it is that we are asking in our research question again, right? So we are trying to figure out if our patients who come to our post-ICU recovery clinic that have a low quality of life versus a normal quality of life, do those patients tell us something different when we ask them, what would it take for you to improve your quality of life? Are their answers different than patients who have a normal quality of life? So for us to do that, we are going to go through the qualitative data that they provided us when we asked that question, and then we're going to code it. And then in our next step with integration of this data for a mixed method study, that will be our third and final tutorial of this grouping. So for this tutorial, we are going to code this data. So let's simply just start with our first participant. Just double click on that document and it pulls it into there. So when we asked this question, this patient said, I need to get my leg strength back so I can continue to walk like I know I should be. So to me, this person is talking about strength. They need to get their strength back. So I'm just simply going to highlight get my leg strength back. Now, I don't have any codes yet. This is the first time I've put in a code. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit this green plus button, code with a new code. Simply tap on that, and I'm going to put in strength. You can choose a color. I'll just keep it as the blue, and I'm going to hit OK. You can see here that strength has been added to this code. Now, I like to have kind of a parent code, which is this qualitative top areas to improve quality of life. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull strength down into that. So it's kind of subset underneath the big parent code, if that makes any sense. So that's it. There's your first code. Let's go on to our second. When we double click our second, this patient said, I need to get my arms feeling stronger again. So arms feeling stronger again. That is the same. I would still say strength for this one. So since we already have that code, you can simply just hit this button and it will throw that code right on there. And then you can see down here, we have two of them that are coded that way. Let's just see if I go down to a different one here, if we get a different answer. Okay, so this patient just says, I can't really think of anything, nothing in particular, just more time. So I'm going to highlight more time. I'm going to code with a new code, and I'm just going to simply put in time. I will make this a lighter blue, hit OK, and you can see time pops up there for the code. It's also added to our bucket over here. I'm going to pull it down into our parent code, and there we go. So it's really as simple as that. You just keep going through, clicking through one by one. I wouldn't hop around like I just did, but just go through, code each and every one of your responses. In the real coding for qualitative data, the picture that I showed you earlier on in this tutorial with all the different colors and all the different codes, that's more what coding a qualitative study is going to look like. This is a very iterative process. So I might have 2 or 3 codes that I pull out in one, and then I'm going to break it down into specific groups. I'm going to bundle them together. For simplicity's sake for this tutorial, I'm just keeping this super easy, super on the top and coding very simply here. But just know that this coding process within MAXQDA can be iterative, and you can repeat it and get it down to the specific codes that you're looking for. So that's essentially what we would do here. Go through each and every one of these until you have your codes filled up. And then once you are satisfied that everything is coded correctly and you have them all completed, we are ready to move on to our third tutorial, where we are going to integrate our qualitative and quantitative data. Okay, so for the final part of our tutorial, I'm actually going to separate it into two different segments because we have two different approaches that we can use for a mixed methods approach for this specific research question that we've been focusing on throughout this tutorial. The first one that we're going to review is called the segment matrix. And this is when you have, when you've read mixed method studies and you look in the literature and you see within the articles, there are tables that pull out the qualitative aspects of the study and mix it with some aspect of the quantitative data as well. So remember again, what we are looking at is within our two groups of patients, those with a low quality of life and those with our normal quality of life, are they telling us something different about what it takes for them to have a little bit better of a quality of life? And so what could be very helpful is to divide into a table of low and normal, and then let's see what they said. So that is something that we can very simply do within MAXQDA. So this is a type of convergent design for a mixed method study where we collected this data at the same time. So it wasn't we collected one before the other and then asked a question and completed the study. We got this data all pretty much exactly at the same time. And now we're just kind of stepping back and taking a big picture look at it. So to do the segment matrix, it's really, really quite simple. The first step, of course, is coding the data just like we did during the last tutorial. So you can see on our codes here that everything, all of our documents have been coded. So you can see that there's a couple of codes per document. So we've completed that. You can see down here in our code bucket, the different types of codes that we came up with. So there are 6 specific codes that we came up with, all underneath that one parent code. So to start our mixed method analysis with the segment matrix, you simply come up here to the top bar and click on mixed methods. And just below it, you will find segment matrix. Go ahead and click segment matrix again. Now, I've kind of already teed this up so you can see this here, but you have to think about what groups are you looking at? And so for our group, pretty easy, low quality of life and normal quality of life. So it's always going to obviously be specific to your research question, but just think of like, what two groups are we comparing here? And, and then looking at the qualitative data. So our two groups are our quality of life. And as you can see here, I didn't choose it by the actual quantitative number, but categorically if they were low or if they were normal. And like I said earlier on in the tutorial, that is age-based, and it's via population norms that are defined by the scoring tool developers. So we have our two groups. I actually double-clicked on this twice to get two groups over here. And this is asking me, is the quality of life normal? 0 is no, 1 is yes. So I just made it so on here I pick, I have one column that's going to be no and one column that's going to be yes. So you just do that accordingly with your data. And I'm going to hit OK. And then what this does is it takes your data set and it splits them into the two groups. So here we have no, so this is our low quality of life group, and quality of life normal, yes, this is our normal quality of life. So we have 9 people that had a normal quality of life and 11 people that had a low quality of life. And then here you can see what their response is to that question. So here's their qualitative data. This is the whole quote that they gave us underneath this first code bucket here. So if you go down and you click and you're like, well, gosh, there were quite a few responses from strength. How did that divide out? When you click that, you see, oh, well, that's pretty evenly. 4 people in this group and 4 people in that group. So you can see who is really saying what. Shortness of breath. Interesting. More people talked about wanting to improve their shortness of breath that had a low quality of life versus people who had a normal quality of life weren't really commenting on that nearly as much. So it's really neat how you can go through this and see how these segments are divided between the two different groups that we have. Now, another really neat thing that you can do is that you can export this table to, you can export it to Excel, but you can export it as a Word document. And I've done that down here already, and I'll pop this up so you can take a peek at it. It really puts it into a nice looking Word document format for you, so you can embed it right into your manuscript. You can edit it, so you can just change the title, you can edit things on here. I just changed this to low quality of life, normal quality of life, so it's a little bit more understandable. And you can see how it's nicely put right into a table here for you. The other neat thing is that it also breaks it up by the specific code. So the top is just kind of that whole bucket of the quotations that were captured in that question. And then this splits it up per code very specifically. What did people say about time? What did people say about strength? So that is a very quick, very brief overview of creating a segment matrix where you are mixing and integrating that qualitative and quantitative data for your mixed method study. For the final tutorial of this project, we are going to review one final way that we can use mixed methods within MAXQDA for our specific study. So we just did the segment matrix. Now we are going to talk about crosstabs. And the cool thing in crosstabs is it really quantitizes the qualitative data. So I'll show you what I mean here. So very similar to how we got to our segment matrix, go up to the mixed methods tab and we find crosstab. I'm just going to click there. And again, I have this kind of teed up here. Think about the groups that you want to split your qualitative data into. And of course, again, ours is quality of life normal or quality of life low. So we enter that in. Of note, I clicked down here only for activated codes. If you can see over to the side here, I have these codes in the lavender color, all activated with little purple dots in front. The reason I did that is because, like I said, we're going to quantize the qualitative data. Every person that we have included in this answered the question, because we got rid of the people that didn't answer the question because we couldn't code anything off of there, right? So this is going to be at 100%. So that's really just kind of noisy data for us. It doesn't tell us a ton. So I did not activate the parent code. I just want the 6 specific codes, and I want to know a little bit more about each one of those. So I clicked that. If I went to click that, it would just grab all of them, including the parent code. I click OK. And what you see here is a table that is created. And again, this is the quantitizing of your qualitative data. You can see up here that the parent code is still listed. It just doesn't give you any specific percentage. So a really brief, quick look at this, and you can see, oh gosh, most people in both groups are commenting on strength as being the key thing that's going to help improve their quality of life, followed by more time, followed by I want to improve my shortness of breath. So this is a really easy, quick way where you can see percentages. You can see not too many people are concerned about returning to work. Well, one person talked about getting energy back, but this is just a really, really helpful way that you can quickly see what is it that most people are talking about, and are there huge differences between the two groups. We are not going to cover in this tutorial about statistics and p-values and statistically significant differences. We're not going to cover that, but that is absolutely something that can be done within MAXQDA. You can see this little button up here that says stats. So you can run statistical analysis on these data sets as well to really kind of sniff out to see, is there statistically significant differences here? We're not going to have a big enough sample size with our 20 here to get that at this point, but that is available and that is an option for you. Another thing that you can do, just like we did with our segment matrix, is upload this as a Word document. And again, it gives you a nice ready to use document that you can plunk right into your manuscript. You can edit this and change this around and make it look a little bit more reader friendly in the Word format as well. So that is our crosstab, a really quick overview of using a crosstab to quantize your qualitative data. And that really wraps up this short little series on how we can use MAXQDA as a really powerful tool when we are conducting our mixed method studies.